Yeah, apologies for that, people. Like I said, I was just turning on the camera. But moving away from speaking about Inaki Williams and these racist idiots, people, let's crack on to Arsenal now. Not going to bore you with the same old subject and same old topics, yeah? I'm going to present you an alternative sort of thing. Now, I'm in no way being pessimistic. I'm actually cool with the alleged signing of Cedric Soares. You know, you're hearing that. I heard today that he can play. It didn't work out for him at Inter Milan, and obviously it seems penny pinching, but allegedly Arteta wanted someone who can play, you know, deputise and challenge Bellerin at right back. £5-6 million loan fee, and he could sign a 4-year deal. You get it? If that's what Arteta wants, that's what he wants. Allegedly, he can play at left back as well. So obviously, that gives him something. I've got no problem with that. We needed a centre half. Nobody saw us signing Mari from Brazil, the Spanish international. Areas have been addressed. But to another way that people could say we spent 10 million on 2 players, which are technically loans, for 4 months. Could that be labelled utterly ridiculous as top 4 is gone? Apparently, I mean, people might think it's doubtful either player could help us win any cups, and are they likely to be here for the long term? So does it really make sense? Really, I mean, that's a bit. I mean, I saw that someone tweeted that, and I thought I'll pose that to you, and I think that's a bit harsh because I mean, Marie, it's down to him if he wants to be, you know, first team player, regular squad option. His ability will decide that, but he's 26. That's a good 4 years. When he gets to 30, you know, you keep him for 2 years and that, and when he declines sort of thing. Cedric Soares, again, for him, his agent's done a good number if he gets a 4-year deal. Because then, as a player, when you're in your 30s, you got to think about it logically. If you're a club and you sign a player in your 30s, in their 30s, within reason, let's just effing Lionel Messi, are you going to give them a 5-year deal? Does it make sense? It's cool for the player, because he's got a 5-year deal, the bread's coming in, do you get it? It always takes hard, not always, because there's some older players that take care of their bodies better than youngers, but you know, it's harder to recover from injuries. There's not really resale value and things like that. He'll be tied down until he's 32, which is good work from him. I don't really mind. Of course, I wouldn't say none of them are necessarily inspiring signings. It's not like I'm here and going, oh, wow. But that's, you know, that's nothing to do. It is what it is in that regards, people. It is what it is. I don't care if a player's bought for 10 million alone or whatever. I just want to see him competent. If he's a right back, can you offer us something in the attacking third? Can you defend properly when called upon? Marie, obviously, I want to see you do better than what we have. I want to see, you know, can he ball... With the modern game, and here he can play a high line, of course, ball play and all of that's probably prevalent and something Arteta's kept an eye on. But for me as a fan, you're a defender. Can you defend? Can you hold a line? Can you track runners? Can you mark properly? Are you consistent? Do you get it? What's your mentality like? I don't care if a man's... Obviously, if we signed a Van Dijk in a mad world, obviously that would make me stand up and go mad thing or something, people. But I'm not saying Marie's same level regardless of price. Clearly he's not. But if a man can come here and do a job and he's plugged a gap and we're down to our bones already, if he doesn't do a job, then we sit here and criticise when needed. But right now I'm not cool. I'm happy with that because, yeah, man, we've had stars at this club, not in defence. It would be lovely to spend the same way we spent 70 million on Pepe, go out there and bring in a top calibre centre half. But we've had big money signings and it hasn't necessarily brought us all success. We've got a big money signing that right wing and I love Pepe. So if man can just come here and you know, we need to plug gaps really. Players have been dropping like flies all season. Touch wood, but in Arsenal's case, you know someone's going to get injured again. You know, say people, something's going to happen to someone again. So you've got to be a bit logical in that, people. It could be seen as smart business, as, you know, we ain't got money to spend. It could be seen as, you know, they're working in a tight budget and getting the best out. We also can't rule out that maybe with the contracts and maybe with Cedric, whatever reason, we can't rule out that even before Arteta, the club wasn't sitting there with a whiteboard and saying, January, we're going on after Soares, we're going after Marie, we've tried all these other guys. I'll give the club that leeway. On one hand, only time will tell. Obviously, if it's a success, oh, it's smart business, it's this and that. If it's a failure, you know what would be said, people, because if you look at the signings of David Luiz, if you look at Lichtsteiner, if you look at Dani Ceballos, you almost get what you pay for in these sort of man, people, really and truly. Mustafi's been playing well, not to scapegoat him, but to be fair, we spent a lot of money on Mustafi and we didn't do our thing with him. I think the problem with Arsenal is that we haven't respected defending or seen defending as important to doing these fancy passes just throughout the number of years, people. For the last, decade or so, really and truly. We've had great technical players. We had a decent back five. We've probably, in the last couple of years, as rubbish as the squad's been in terms of the squad's been better, but we ain't got top four. I've seen us get top four of worse people. We're struggling, but let's be honest, they're better attacking options and whatnot, and probably better defensive options all over the side. But it's still a calamity. It's still a calamity. We need to respect defending, and that only changes with giving Leno a competent back four in front of him and addressing the spine of the side properly. Only time will tell, really and truly. In relation to Marie, though, before we get on to him, people, like I said, they're clear stopgaps, but it could be smart business on what we paid for. They're both kind of relatively experienced. Marie's won titles in South America. Obviously, Soares, I don't know about any other things in his career, but he was part of the Euro side of Portugal who claimed the trophy as well. So who knows? I mean, he did go to Inter Milan and it didn't work out. So you have to wonder why it didn't work out for him there. But moving away from that, Maria said, "I'm a very professional player. I like working hard every day to achieve objectives. One thing I can control is working hard on a daily basis to help my teammates win matches and repay the faith that Arsenal and Mikel have shown by signing me to play here." And that's all you want to hear. He realises he's got a good chance. Go out there and make the most of it, really and truly, and go out there and have a decent career. He's also said, and the bit I liked even more than that, he said, "Mikel's transmitted a lot of confidence in me," and that's good for me, Carl. I don't know how much conversations they've had, or to the degree they've had it, or to the degree their previous relationship, if they crossed paths at City through both being previous employers. But just for me as a fan, Marie's been here 2 seconds. If he's already installed confidence, and I hear that with existing players, that's what I like to see, people. Because if he wants to work hard and repay the faith, and he knows his manager believes in him, and he's given him a belief already, people, we should be alright. Again, the only thing that will separate us from being alright is if we actually show we can win football matches, and he's actually a good player. That's how fickle it is. But he said he's transmitted a lot of confidence in me. He's a great coach. He's changing things at a big club. It's really important to have that personality to be able to take decisions at a big club during such a tricky time. I think that speaks volumes about Mikel. Now, probably a lot of that is probably, rubbing him up the right way and things like that. It is what it is. I saw a thing as well, people. Apparently, in relation, what kind of tipped the balance for us getting Cedric is, obviously, I'll just read it out to you, people. "Cedric will provide direct competition to Bellerin, but the fact he is also able to fill in at left back makes him an attractive opposition. Arsenal have been looking at Kazawa, but Cedric has already proven himself in the league, and his wage demands are understood to be less." So these things writing it for itself. And also you hear Arteta vetoed the signing of Kazawa. You hear in Chelsea have bidded for Dries Mertens, and it's an 11 p.m. transfer deadline. So if it's true, they got to get a move on. But apparently he was offered to Arsenal, probably was by his agents, and not just Arsenal, almost every team, as agents should. Apparently he was turned down as we want younger players, and I don't mind Mertens, but you don't want to keep getting man that can be good for a year or two. It's all right to have a couple of stopgap signings, but we're bringing potentially, you can't have too many. And arguably the most important players in our side, or players that, away from the young ones like Aubameyang, you look at Laka, potentially, just say David Luiz and Socrates, because they're playing all the time. They're getting on a bit. So I'm not saying when a man turns a certain age you need to get rid of them. I'm talking about foresight and consistent planning. You don't want to it's good for them, because if they get stuck on good wages, you don't want to be stuck with players that are past it and tough to move on, and you've got to let them ride out their deals, people. So it is what it is in that regards. Torreira has spoken as well, people, in relation to Arteta. He said he wants us to be bold, to take risks. He wants us to be in continuous movement throughout the match. He wants us to try look for those passing lines at any time during the match. And that's what we need to hear, people. That is what we need to hear. Couple more Arsenal things, and apparently our plans for our training camp in Dubai could be jeopardised by spreads of the deadliest coronavirus, which you've been hearing, people. I'm sure that come out of China, but we don't want to take no risk. With the club monitoring the situation amid rising concerns in the UAE. Obviously, we're trying to head there during the international break for training purposes, to take advantage of that. I think it'll be good bonding purposes with, you know, because it's like a camp. You're going to be closer together. Right now, you do your training, you're there for a couple hours, you say hello to Arteta, you all bust out and leave each other. But when you're with each other, it's the camaraderie. And for Arteta, that's his first real bondage with the team. And people forget football, you need to look at it like brothers. People forget football, it's about emotions and about mentally more than it's about the technical stuff, people. You have all the fucking tactics in the world, pardon my language, I'm getting a bit passionate. You can have all the tactics in the world, but if you don't fight for each other, if you don't fight for your brothers, if you do not have that fear of letting your fellow man or woman or fans or whoever down, you will not succeed in football. I look at my grassroots days. I mean, Edmonton All-Stars and Norsemen, I won grassroots titles. It's nothing. But we all wanted to be better than everybody. Ourselves. We all wanted to be better for ourselves, for the team. We all wanted to repay Darren Black Pep Guardiola's faith. We all wanted to be winners. And I don't know about anyone, but speaking for myself, I loved competition, but I was scared of competition. I used to find it as a footballer fucking embarrassing to be on the subs bench. You ask anyone about me, it's still to this day, if I'm ever on the bench, you don't feel like I've played people. And it took me a while to get over that. Obviously, and that's in my own coaching ambitions, that's something I'm going to have to deal with, benching players, because I hated that. The fear of the bench. And I was the best right back, like ask Darren, he'll tell you. And if you got me on Snap, I've got him to say that once. But you know, there was a couple times I weren't at the best of my games. I'll be at training and like, I'll think I've trained well. Sundays come hearing names read out. I'm not hearing DG. Like, I'm like, rah, like, what's going on the bench and that? What did I do in training? It was the fear of that. That was driving me. I wanted to start. I played right back and left back, but there was six man basically. There was two players that me and Romario could play on either side, but you know, two fighting for right back, two fighting for left back. Do you get what I'm saying, people? And it was that fear. You need to get that brotherly love, people, because you're with each other. It's a close-knit bunch. You're going to be bonding with the fans out there, and that all helps because Arteta's already got them bonded and on the same, you know, on the same wavelength and things like that. But we need to see what it's on, because I mean, you look at Marie. He said, when you build a good group and have a coaching philosophy like Mikel's, I think he can completely change Arsenal and the current dynamic around the team. I think as a coach, he has everything it takes to achieve that. Plus, he has a very good side with top players. Now, obviously, a bit of that's lip service, but you get where he's going with that. In relation to Arsenal transfer news, the Daily Mail is saying Arsenal and Wolves are among the clubs weighing up a move for PSV's under-18 starlet None Madueke. Now, a lot of people talk like they know players. I don't claim to know every player, but if you watch my team consistently, you've seen me speak about this lad. I'm sure he's made his PSV debut. I'm sure he made, in the same year as well, he made his reserve team debut. I've watched him play for under-17s at England. I've watched him at Spurs before he turned down their scholarship, and he's a player. I think the best thing for him is to stay at PSV. Stay there, because as much as I want him at my club, you got Saka, you got Martinelli, you got all these other dons. PSV, they got the same logic, but you're more likely to get games, you grow. If you want to move back to the Premier League, it can happen for you. I will take him, but I think that's what he should do. He does, obviously, he's still raw, people. He's extremely raw. He's, 17 years of age, but he can take a man on. He plays with his head up. He's very positive. He knows when to pass it and when to try to take a man on. Obviously, it's about fine-tuning that, getting greater consistency, potentially bulking up a bit, but he is a very decent player. And the under-17s and under-18s, there's some serious players, man. Celtic's Dembele, I really like this youth. I mean, Jude Bellingham's the worst unkept secret. There's mad players about, man. Charlie Patino, same logic. There's some monsters from under 15s to under 18s for England specifically. You got Muslera, I can never pronounce his name, former Chelsea, Bayern Munich lad. There's some hitters coming up, people. Trust me, we've got some good players, and he's going to hope he's one of them. And I would take him. But for me, as non-biased as it is, and as an Arsenal fan, of course, but as someone who loves youth football, as you lot know, the best thing is to stay at PSV. Moving away from that, and someone that's already at the club, apparently Dani Ceballos will stay on loan at Arsenal. He believes he'll be able to reverse his situation and end up being an important footballer in the new coach's scheme. Now, there's 4 months left of the season. You could still have a part to play, still have that positive end. Apparently, the 21 minutes he got given against Bournemouth has dramatically boosted his morale. I mean, 21 minutes against Bournemouth. I mean, come on now. Apparently, you know, we already heard Madrid didn't want to get rid of my man. Didn't want to cancel his contract, his temporary contract at Arsenal. apparently we didn't want to get rid of a player who was not only the personal request of Emre, but also Raul Sanllehi. So is Sanllehi's pride on the line? Did Ceballos' agents and things try and get him out and there was no interest from other clubs? I doubt it, because you had Valencia, Betis, and you would imagine there'd be a respectable amount of clubs that were in for him. Spurs fans are probably laughing at us, but if Spurs and Arsenal were in for you and you heard AC Milan, then you can imagine you get something. So hopefully, if it is true, he knuckles down, does his thing, and you know, he tries to move forward in that regards, people. Because we ain't seen the best from him in any regards. Moving away from that, we might as well speak about some transfers briefly. Let's big up Spurs, man. I can't lie, man. You gotta give Spurs credit. I've signed for Spurs. Stephen Bergin, I can't say his name, but I've signed for Spurs. What made me sign for Spurs is to be closer to home. For those who don't know, you lot keep spamming my comments saying I look like him, and I'm seeing Pepe. I see Ella Dodge. You lot, I don't know if you lot are even racist, but all black youths look saying that. But is what it is. But on a serious note, they've signed him. He's played 16 times this season, scored 5 goals. He hasn't been at his best this year, but it's still a respectable return. If you look at, I think on the other page, I'm lying to you guys. Oh, here we go. Looking at his numbers, for this season, he either scores or makes a goal every 89 minutes in Holland, and he has the 3rd best of such stat in the competition behind Tadic, which has 70, which is basically the same ratio but in 78, and Ziyech of 79. Apparently his contributions to goal in this way, either scoring or creating, is also improving season on season. 17-18, he got 8 goals, 8 assists. He produced a goal contribution every 136 minutes. Last season he got 14 goals, 12 assists, and it was every 110 minutes. The number of goal attempts he has per 90 minutes is down 2.36% this season, which is down from consistently being at around 2.98. So I mean, he'll be a good option for Spurs. He can play as a 10, he can play on either flank. He likes to probably come inside more than take people down the flanks. It's down to him to improve and go up a level, but I'm a big fan of him. Obviously, I would be. And you've got to give Spurs credit. I mean, Lo Celso, probably second half of the year, looks like he's going to move all right now. Made his deal permanent. Talk of bringing in Højbjerg. Probably Spurs fans want an out-and-out striker of some sorts to come in as well. They've obviously got Gedson Fernandes on loan. Apparently, Danny Rose is going on loan, so we'll have to see. I think you have to give Newcastle a bit of credit as well, because they got that Lazara guy on loan from Inter Milan. He's fairly positive dribbler. They've got Danny Rose on a season-long loan. They re-signed Bentaleb for their midfield, and he's falling off a bit, but he's a decent player. So that's decent business from Newcastle, really and truly. Apparently United and Spurs are still in contact for Monaco striker Islam Slimani, so that one probably run down to the wire. Giroud apparently has agreed provisional terms with Lazio for a 3.5-year deal, which you shouldn't be trying to give that to Giroud. But apparently he's not fully sold on such idea yet, 100%, people. Manchester City are allegedly trying to sign Skriniar and are willing to pay 80 million, which, I mean, certain teams in Manchester paid 80 for Maguire, so it ain't too bad. Apparently Crystal Palace are in talks to sign Jared Bowen from Fulham. I keep saying Fulham, from Hull for 16 million. And it's about time a team took a chance on him. I'm not going to lie, I think he's a good player, but last 2 games I saw from him, he weren't the best against Chelsea and the other, but I think he's a decent player. There's been worse players that have been afforded an opportunity to cut their teeth in the Championship, people. I mean, above the Championship into the Premier League. He can play as a striker, he can play on either flanks, which he played on the right against Hull. He likes to drift into the 10. He could be a good, decent little player, man. He's worth a try. Obviously, Barcelona allegedly had an 80-odd million pound bid, 85 actually, turned down for Richarlison, which is a madness. Apparently Spurs are trying to extend Aurier's contract, which is quite crazy. A young defender I once had my eyes on, Jean Marceline, apparently is leaving Auxerre for Monaco for 10 million. So I'm going to definitely be there. And they signed Tushimani from Bordeaux today as well. Another midfielder I've got my eyes on. Like I said earlier, apparently Chelsea have opened talks with Napoli to sign Mertens. He's available for 6 million. Apparently Wolves and Roma are trying to go for Gareth Bale. That's clearly nonsense. Apparently Barcelona are still trying to sign a striker before deadline day after the injury to Soares. Although I have seen conflicting reports that that's not the case anymore. Apparently Atletico Madrid have refused to offer PSG more than 15 million euros, which is in pounds 12.6 mil for Cavani. So they're probably just waiting until he becomes a free agent, but they probably face competition from David Beckham's new MLS football franchise, Inter Miami. Apologies, people, because they have made a bid for him, and they're probably going to need a marquee player if they're a new club. With that being said, you've seen Hertha Berlin have gone after Spurs target Piatek, the striker. And you've also heard Spurs have quashed their talks to sign William Jose. And that's all courtesy of Thingy, of the BBC. I don't know if this is true, but 34-year-old Solomon Kalou has been linked with West Ham. I mean, this isn't 012, and I remember when he used to be linked with Arsenal all the time. Probably leave that one alone. Apparently Ignis Hagi, the son of obviously the famous Hagi, and I've seen him play at the Under-21s Championship last summer, is going to be joining Gerrard at Glasgow Rangers on loan, and apparently he'll be on a flight. Big blow for Chelsea. 19-year-old England defender Tariq Lamptey, who made his official debut against us, right back, is keeping it moving and has a pre-contract with Lille, who obviously have agreed a deal for him to come in the summer, but would very much like him to come now. And it'd be a bit of blow for Chelsea. Azpilicueta isn't going to have too long left there, and you'd imagine Reece James and Lamptey are two good options. Lamptey really should be playing first team football week in, week out this year somewhere. He's 19, he's good enough to play. So he should be, well, with his contract, he was never going out on loan. And that's been somewhere, you've seen PSG linked with him, a lot of teams. He needs to go out and play, man. And it's a bit of blow to Chelsea. Apparently, well, it looks like Emre Can will be staying at Juventus because apparently Arsenal and Dortmund have pulled away from that. You've got to rate Sheffield United as well for signing Sandra Berge. A big signing, can play football, 6'4", played in the Champions League. Resale value there because he's about 2021. Big up Sheffield United for that signing. Apparently Ravel Morrison is leaving them to go Middlesbrough. Yeah, there's not much. It's nothing else really and truly. That's all my Arsenal versus Burnley preview. I ain't gonna lie, I'm gonna record that tomorrow, people, because I'm kind of tired. But I don't think we actually spoke about the Premier League games to come this week, or did we? Yes, we did. Yes, we did. Yes, we did. I don't think we spoke about Arsenal-Burnley, though. And Arsenal-Burnley, obviously, Burnley away from home at Turf Moor is going to be a tough game. I want us to win. We need to start winning games. I hope we win. Burnley, obviously, for me, through doing my little research, they're decent from set pieces. But it's about not only the first ball, the first and second balls. Clear our lines. If they win first ball, the first headers in set pieces, make sure we do not lose the second, because that's where a lot of goals come from. I think their positioning on the counter-attack allows them to be susceptible, and we need to not only press their defence, we need to be decisive, we need to play quick. I think we need to be brave. Not brave in that we need to make tackles. I think we've got to take shots. I think they're there on the counter-attack, but it's always a difficult game at Turf Moor for us. We won there last year. Eddie Nketiah scored his first Premier League goal. Forgive me if I'm wrong there. Might put a bet on Lightning to strike twice in that regards. So we'll see what happens in that regards. But in relation to the Deluded podcast, people and whatnot, I always appreciate you for tuning in. Make sure you check out my YouTube content. If this is the first time you're listening to my podcast, make sure you follow it on the Spotify if that's what you're doing, Google Podcasts if that's what you're doing, Apple Podcasts if that's what you're doing. Check out the YouTube content. At this point, you just type in Deluded Gooner, you will find everything. My links to all my socials are in all of the other descriptions, so I'm not hard to find, people, really and truly. So on that note, there's not much more to add. Thank you for listening to the DG podcast. I'm out. And for those of you that are listening on the camera, thank you as well. Again, people, make sure you comment, subscribe and do everything. There will come a day when I actually have a camera and I can just set it to record while I'm making my podcast and clip up the videos. But it doesn't always work like that. The cookie doesn't crumble like that. So yeah, man, if you're watching this video on YouTube, thank you. DG though, time to keep it moving. I'm out. Gang business.